And we're live. What is good, YouTube? This is your boys back again for another one, the Dynamic Duo. I'm your host, Max, aka Maximilian, and I got my co-host with me today,
It's Lando.
Mr. Lando. How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm like just holding it down over here. You know what I'm saying? Trying to make moves, get things back on track. Um,
I hear that,
so
man.
yeah, people out there, death by a thousand cuts is our topic for tonight. And I want to pass it and let Mr. Lando start us off here and let the listening audience know what we discussing tonight.
Well, this term "death by a thousand cuts," if anybody is familiar with that, is basically a form of torture, basically
Hmm.
to break someone's will and whittle them down until they just die.
Right, right.
Now, a- according to the context of our conversation tonight, we're applying that to the tactics, and not just the tactics, but the general female nature and how that is in respect to men.
Hmm.
When it comes to relationships, whether it's intentional or inadvertent, women have a way of administering death by a thousand cuts on a man's life. Now, would you agree with that, Matt?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially in the context of or in the construct or context of marriage. What they do is they seek to gather whatever you're doing to make yourself happy, because happiness comes from within. So a lot of things a man will do is very, basic. Like we can sit in a empty room with just a TV and a chair and be happy, like no furniture around. You know what I'm saying? Minimal stuff. And a woman will come in and she will slowly tries to make you compromise on everything you like to do in exchange for everything she likes to do.
Right.
So till
So,
you're basically left with none of your hobbies, none of the things that make you you.
and just like a death by a thousand cuts, it's so subtle that you don't know you're dying.
Hmm.
You know, men can be pretty much smart and intelligent and know when something's up. Like if
Hmm.
there's a drastic change in a relationship that is just so obvious, most men will be like, "Hey, this wasn't this way when we got together. What
Right.
the hell?" Right?
Right.
But if you're in a long-term relationship with a woman and she just starts to do things like a little bit at a time, just slowly and subtly, years can go by and you won't even notice the change
Right.
happening in your life. I
Right.
mean, it could be something as so simple as like little bits of stress and annoyances to the point to where you look up one day and you got gray hair or
Hmm.
you got a beer gut when you know that you're an athlete, but for some reason these years went by and now your six pack then turned into a keg.
Right.
You know,
Right. And I'll tell you, an example. One guy could be, he could have a hobby of, let's say, sailboating. He likes to
hmm
sailboat, you know, and let's say that he gets with this woman and they get married, and that woman pretends like she's in the sailboating, but when she sees like the cost of maintaining that boat, and she's just not happy with that cost, and she wants to then take those resources and apply them to what she wants to apply them to, be it, you
hmm
know be it some kind of uh outings that y'all want to go on. If you're allocating resources to something that only benefits you, she will want to often take that and apply it to the both of you. So she's now sucked, and whatever the both of you wants to do, or whatever she likes to agree on, she's gonna go and have you try to agree on it with her.
yeah, she wants to force inclusiveness.
Yes, yes. And if she's not into, let's say she's not really liking to go on the boat anymore, that now becomes the that now becomes the target of her hostility.
Or it could be something more subtle than that.
Hmm.
Like, say a woman will pretend to be into your hobbies
Hmm.
so she can slowly infiltrate them and remove them.
Mm. That's
You
yeah.
ever
Oh
think about
wow.
that?
Yeah, dude. I did not think about that. Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, say, you're into sports, right?
Hmm.
And again, it's real subtle. She'll
Hmm.
sit there with you and pretend to be into sports to act like she wants to learn about it. But
Right.
really, she wants to learn like what what makes you tick with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's almost like trying to find out what a child enjoys. That way, when it's time to punish him, you know how to
What to
take
take
away.
away? Yeah.
Yeah,
What-
and I think women observe men in that fashion,
Mm.
and that's how they can slowly manipulate and control men to the point to where men will cuck up and be like, "Well, I got to sell a motorcycle to make the missus happy."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And just slowly be giving up all this stuff, thinking that it's for the relationship, but it ain't for the relationship. It's so she can pretty much bog you down
Hmm.
and erase the former person that you were. And then when you're not that person anymore, then she'll turn around and complain and saying you're not the man I married.
Right.
And then she's gonna
To the
monkey branch
next
to
one.
the next dude.
She's gonna monkey branch to the guy who is now a new branch that needs to be sucked away
Yep,
because
yep,
he's yet to be controlled at that point.
right.
And she was like, "Ooh, a new challenge because I already sucked this one dry."
Yeah, so oh, you know what? That I'm glad that you brought up that word.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure you all heard it before how women say they like a challenge when it comes to a man.
Hmm.
Now that challenge is for the sole purpose of trying to change that man into
Hmm.
what she wants him to be.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting? Also, a spinoff of that is the whole concept of being an asshole.
Hmm.
It's like in order for you to avoid being manipulated like that, you kind of have to be an asshole.
Yeah, because you're protecting yourself.
Yeah,
It's self-preservation to be an asshole.
yeah.
I mean, granted, no decent man wants to be an asshole.
Hmm.
It's just the lesser of two evils.
Hmm.
What would you rather be, an asshole or a shell of your former self?
Right. Right. And that's what it boils down to. You once she strips you away and she tells you you're not the man that she married
Hmm.
and leaves you for broke, you were left wondering who is the man that I was.
Right. And now you got to enter the world trying to quote unquote find yourself
Right.
and figure out what you like all over
Right.
again.
All over again. And it's like you can see why if you're a strong man and you make it through that, you can kind of see why a weak man would kill himself.
Yep.
That's why the statistics are staggering for men, as they exit, and get into divorce. They're like offing themselves, and you can kind of see why.
Hmm.
And so, these people who keep downing MGTOW, whatever, like
Hmm.
that is some real shit. That is some real shit for a man to kill himself because he got divorced.
Yep.
So MGTOW and MGTOW men, we try to sustain, we try to avoid that situation because it's damaging internally mentally, it's straight damaging.
Hmm.
And men's recourse most of the time is something physical action. We're not going to the damn shrink. We're not fucking going to the doctor. Like our response, because men are the gatekeepers to physical.
Hmm.
The gatekeeper to the physical, when he no longer has the gate to protect, he just offs himself.
Yep.
You
Pretty
know.
much.
So and I think MGTOW is what helps is one of those driving forces that help men to understand that they have another option. So there's just it's just no way. Like this is a growing movement, and it should stay growing. It's not even a movement; it's just a personal philosophy. I'm
You
kind of
know
sick
what?
and tired of that word. So
I was thinking today that it would actually help men in general, whether they be MGTOW, red pill, MRA,
Mhm.
or whatever, if a group of us got together, I mean, us individuals that are actually talented and knows how to produce content of high production value and just make a little movie. You know what
Right.
I mean? I think that would be I would be so down to do something like that. Something that really paints a story, a real narrative, so people can get a real perspective of what MGTOW is,
Hmm.
but also be able to visually see all the different variations and iterations of what MGTOW men are like.
Hmm.
Because you got MGTOW men who are just regular ass guys, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just that they have their rules.
Right.
And then you got MGTOWs who are pretty much full blown monks
Hmm.
who
It
who who abstain from women for the safety of their future and the quality of their life,
right.
and then you got um the regular red pilled men for the most part that still engage with women,
Hmm.
but maybe some of them kind of use their knowledge for evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I wouldn't doubt it that there are MGTOW men out there who use the red pill information so they can pretty much, Thanos chicks every time they come across it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't doubt it because it's like when it comes to interacting with women, when you understand the nature and how they respond to different things,
Yeah.
it's so easy to go to the dark side
Yeah. It is.
because you know what they're gonna think before they even know what they're gonna think.
Right. It does give you like a tele. You got a what they call a precog. You become
Mhm.
precog once you make that. You become
Oh man,
precog.
let me tell you, I was having a conversation with a woman because I was on social media and she was like just trying to tell me about myself
Hmm.
is if she actually knows me when she never even met me. So I
Right.
was like, you know what? I'll give you my number and I'll challenge you to talk to me for 10 minutes and see if you could stomach handling what I got to say. So of course, what I did was I let her do all the talking because
Mhm.
just like in one of our previous videos, the best way to make a woman feel like you're the most interesting conversationalist is just to let her run her mouth about herself, and that's what she did.
Mm.
And then when I injected myself into the conversation, I would say things
Mhm.
to the point to where she would find herself simply repeating what I said, but thinking like it was her own idea. And then I
Yeah.
will point that fact out to her.
Right.
And then it's like by the time the conversation was over, she couldn't believe that she agreed with everything that I was talking about, but she's against MGTOW
They just don't know.
because she got cornered with facts, and I showed her that she doesn't actually think, she feels her way through conversations.
Right.
Everything is emotional when it comes to women, no matter how much they want to admit it. They could say that
Yeah.
they've been raised around their brothers or they
Hmm.
hang around men, and it's like being around men does not equate to knowing how men think.
Right.
Just like being around women doesn't equate to knowing how women think. The difference is men observe. Women don't observe, they just feel things out. Men
Hmm.
observe, and then we go off of the facts of what actually happened.
Happen. Right. Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what they do when it comes
Mhm,
to being in relationships. They want you to feel what they feel. And
mhm.
so when you when you trying to feel what they feel,
You kind of
they
like
then
start to self-destruct.
you start trying to cater to that feeling to make her happy.
Mhm.
And that's when you start to whittle away and chip away your own foundation of who you are in order to appease her,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. So it's becoming a prevalent thing the narcissism in women. And so, you know, gentlemen, you need to watch out there. You know, out there, you need to do some research on narcissism. You need to do some research on borderline personalities, aka BPD,
Mm-hmm.
and you will understand these types of signs, red flags, and see them and discard. You know, you'll remove yourself from that situation because listen, it ain't worth the pussy. I'm gonna tell you right now, being with a narcissist
Absolutely not.
and being with a BPD person is not worth the pussy. I don't care what you say. I'll go. I'll pay for your pussy if you need. If you want to fuck that bad, it's not worth it. So
Hmm.
stay away from that shit. Um, but
Absolutely.
but yes, sir. But you got anything else you want to add to on this topic, Mr. Lando?
Um, well, I guess in closing, I'll just go back to the whole death by a thousand cuts thing.
Hmm.
Like I said, if there's any men that are familiar with that process, basically, a person who's a prisoner of war being extorted for information gets slowly cut at to the
Hmm.
point to where they know they're injured, but they don't know that they're bleeding out and dying.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the cuts are small.
Hmm.
They're not massive. They're just small little incisions in various parts of the body, and then death comes without ever even knowing it.
Right.
And that's kind of how modern day Western relationships are for most men. It's
Hmm.
just a slow death,
And
and my reasoning behind that is just the whole fact of weddings. The two ceremonies that you wear a tuxedo to is your wedding and
hmm
your funeral.
hmm
A wedding ain't nothing but a funeral while you're alive.
You got that right.
Yeah, man.
Oh
It's
man.
it's it's the a wedding is the preview of the end.
Yes, it is. Oh man, and you know what I was thinking just now too is like
Huh.
if it's a torture situation, let's say if you got a POW, when you mentioned POW, it made me think of this. Eh,
Mhm.
If you're in a situation where the person is getting tortured for information, they often say that they'll just say anything so they can stop being tortured.
Right.
A
Death by a
man,
thousand cuts ain't quite
yeah,
like that
a
because you
man.
don't know you're
Well,
about to die.
I was thinking like in terms of a relationship,
Hmm.
a man is going to forego what he wants to actually do in order to make her happy.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Because he wants to go turn wrenches, but she wants him to go pick out some curtains at the at the local market. He'd rather be actually in the garage turning wrenches than to go pick out curtains for the house.
Hmm.
But she wants to drag him along and then stomp her little feet when she don't get away.
Mm-mm-mm. Yep.
So that's and now if the guy who doesn't go and he prefers to wrench on the car and tell her to go by herself,
Hmm.
well now he's an asshole.
Yeah. You can't win. You can't
No.
win. Women would rather be right than be happy.
Mhm. Mhm. Indeed, indeed. Well, gentlemen, the YouTubers, thanks for checking in tonight. Wherever you are, if it's nighttime, daytime, afternoon, I want to say thank you for watching or thank you for listening. Make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Hit the bell so you can get the notifications because we do this every Monday, depending on where you are. So, Mr. Lando, guess we
Mm.
signing out, sir.
Likewise. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Peace.
Later.